Welcome to The Skinny. I'm your host, Shazan. So many things happening all at the same time. Incredible conversations, communities being built, dreams being realized, and movements ignited and reignited. So much to learn and even more to experience. This season on The Skinny, we dig deeper, cutting the fat and getting right down to the nitty-gritty on topics that impact our lives. I'm so excited to highlight amazing stories and facilitate impassioned voices and conversations, eager to share, learn, grow, and evolve with you into even more amazing, enlightened, and empowered souls. So come on, honey bunnies, let's do this. It's showtime. Hi, honey bunnies. Welcome to another episode of The Skinny with Shazan. If this is your first time or you're a returning listener, thank you so much for sharing this time with me. I am sending you the hugest hugs. I hope you're doing absolutely amazing and sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying The Skinny, because today's show is really great. And I don't want to give away anymore, so let me get started. So the influencer's influence began 17 years ago in 2004, 1 year before the launch of MySpace, if you even remember what that is, and 6 years before the launch of what we know now as Instagram in October 2010. It's like, what was life before Instagram? But it's not even that long that it's been around. And a CEO by the name of Ted Murphy saw the impact that individual creators were having on others, and he saw a financial opportunity and he didn't want to miss out on it. So over the next few years, he experimented and perfected not only a formula, but the technology to connect influencers and brands. So in 2006, he launched Pay Per Post, and this was the first established marketing research that paid bloggers to create content for actual brands. So here we are less than 20 years later with a successful influencer marketing industry, like massively successful. And as the saying goes, the rest is history, because during this time, this industry is now near $14 billion. But at the same time, again, another unfortunate thing is that we're seeing pay disparities that are extremely prevalent. And the reports about the near $14 billion industry is according to Statista that did a report in 2021. So we're going to go into a bit of this reality today. And of course, because I always like to highlight the highlight, we're going to dive into an incredible resource and tool that we can use as influencers or bloggers, or just for like guiding us with our businesses and how to charge. We're going to talk about how to get the pay that we deserve. So with me on the show today is a returning guest, an influencer, ethical and sustainable blogger, model, editorial contributor. She's done amazing contributions to numerous large editorial outlets, and also the founder of the brand Thrifts Tangles and the creator of this great source I'm telling you about, the Influencer Calculator. So welcome my amazing friend and incredibly brilliant and beautiful Tyler Chanel. Tyler, thank you so much for being here with me for season 4, my first returning guest.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. That intro was amazing. I love that you shouted out MySpace. I was on MySpace back in the day. I was like in middle school, probably in 6th grade, updating my profile. And I feel like MySpace is the reason I'm really good at like graphic design and HTML, and it taught me all my coding skills. So shout out to MySpace.
Okay, that was like the start. That was really like the start of all of this. So you were with me for season 3. It did an incredibly amazing job. And apart from hubby, of course, you are my first returning guest on The Skinny. So I am so excited because you've done so much more and done some incredible things since the last time you were here. So let's jump right in. It is showtime. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so flattered to be your first returning guest besides your husband. I really enjoyed our last conversation about all things thrifting. But yeah, today I'm doing really good. I cannot complain. How are you?
I'm good. We're in fall according to the calendar. Thank God here in LA, we're still like getting the warmth during the day, our cool mornings and evenings. Can't complain. Cannot complain at all. Thank God.
I am dying to go to Trader Joe's to get all the pumpkin flavored everything.
You know what? I do remember you told me about this place when we just met. And I'm thinking maybe we've met more than a year. This was like maybe going on almost 3 years because we've both been here in LA around the same amount of time. But you told me about this place that in the fall, they get everything like decorated with pumpkins and like a house, and there's hay and all of these. I never went to it, but I do remember visualizing what you were telling me about. And it's like, wow, that must be such an amazing place to go and visit. I think it was like at a farm or something.
Yeah, the place is called, I'm not sure if they are doing it this year. I really hope they are. It's called Descanso Gardens. I don't even remember what city it's in, but it's amazing. They do like a whole pumpkin house. It's super cute, but it's a huge botanical garden. I don't know how many acres it is, but oh my gosh, that was that 2 years ago? Was that 3 years ago?
I think it probably is over 2 years now. That is so crazy. And we're still friends. It's wonderful. I didn't scare you away with my crazy self when we met up at that first event that you had invited me to, which was awesome because I got to meet Janu as well that time. So we've been rolling since then. But anyway, it is about you. So I'm completely like over the moon and so proud and excited about all of the great things that you're doing now and that you've done since then. And before we get to the meat of the matter, which is, the disparities and all of that kind of stuff, please tell everyone else a little bit about yourself and the creation of Thrifts Tangles.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Tyler Chanel. I was born in Chicago, raised in Vegas, and I've been in LA for 3 years, like Shazon mentioned. I created Thrifts Tangles back in 2012. I really wanted to showcase my natural hair journey. Back then, I got like this crazy haircut. That was my first time really rocking my hair naturally. And I was trying to learn how the heck am I going to take care of this hair? I don't know how to take care of natural hair because I always had a perm. And so I started sharing online all about my natural hair journey and just every month I would do a length check and kind of see, how long is my hair getting? Is my hair getting healthier? And kind of keeping track of that. And I was blogging. I told everyone I was a blogger, but I would post like once a year. It was really bad. It was so embarrassing. But I swore, I was like, I'm going to be a blogger, and everyone's like, okay, well, what is that even? Because bloggers back then weren't really even making money. So it was like, okay, what's your real plan? What's your plan A? And so I'm glad I stuck to it because, if you listen to some of the naysayers, I might have gave up on, blogging and influencing and everything. But I don't think anyone could have imagined what the space has transformed into. But back to Thrifts Tangles, I started with only talking about hair. And then I started sharing my thrifted finds as well, because in real life, people were asking me, hey, where'd you get your outfit? And I'm like, oh, it was only $10. I got it from the thrift store. And people were asking me in real life and their reactions were like, disbelief. They were like, there's no way you got that at the thrift store. And so I thought there was something to it. I was like, you know what? I should maybe share this online. And I was way more passionate about thrifting than I was hair. So it made it easier to post content more than once a year. And so that's kind of what, Thrifts Tangles came to be. But now I talk about things like sustainability. And more recently, I really got into talking about pricing and how to price yourself as an influencer, because I found a lot of people in this space, specifically minorities in this space, don't know how to charge themselves. Or they're getting undercharged, and we are valuable as influencers and we deserve to get paid. So I really wanted to start sharing that messaging as well. So now I kind of cover all of those topics, but I show up online way more frequently and I have a lot of fun having these conversations online. And my whole goal is to encourage people to give thrifting, sustainability, and their natural selves a chance. But I also want them to be able to feel comfortable talking about taboo topics such as money. And I want to make money feel less taboo, because why can't we talk about money without it being weird,
And the thing too is that this taboo topic, just going through life and careers and stuff, conversations about like salary or pay in any form was like a no-no. And so many companies they would make this discussion of pay like grounds for immediate dismissal, you would hear in some places. And really and truly, like in getting older and seeing how the system really works, it's nothing other than, or in addition to other things, but I know that one of the main points has to be to allow that pay inequality amongst colleagues to continue without question and outrage. Because if your neighbor is not doing anything different in their job than you, and you realize they're making $50,000 more than you are, that's going to be an upset. So I think for the companies to have been able to just continue to be able to do this, and even now too, to make that conversation about pay and salaries an awkward space to be in, even when you're out of the workplace, then this is how these, spaces of the unknown and the uncomfortable and the underpay continues. And so these disparities have, just been happening so prevalently in other areas, but now they're also happening in this new industry, which is the influencer community, especially because like there is no established influencer rates or pay guidelines, with most people not having other influencers that they feel comfortable to talk to about money, or no real guidance. Then you have stuff like what you're talking about, where influencers are not getting paid or they're getting underpaid. And so here's the thing, that hopefully, conversations like this and people like you that have the experience and the inside knowledge will continue sharing, which then continues to open up the doors for other people to be able to advocate for themselves when it comes to getting paid for what they deserve. So when did you start working with brands?
So I started working with brands, I want to say about 3 years ago. But my first brand deal was, or I should say, I first started getting paid to work with brands 3 years ago. And my first brand deal was, the paid brand deal was, I got $15 to post to my Instagram to my Instagram account. And I think I had like 5,000 followers at the time, but that was my first time actually being offered payment. And I totally screwed that up, because the brand contacted me and they were like, hey, our budget is $30, which, okay, that is nothing. I should have turned them down then, but I was so used to getting, gift cards or products. And so when a brand said, I'm going to give you cash, I'm like, oh, heck yes. Like, let's do this. I was so excited. And I said, okay, yeah, sure. They're like, what can you give us? Our budget's $30. What can you do for us? I told them I could do an Instagram post and I could do a blog post. And little me, who's not business savvy at all, or wasn't back then, didn't think like, oh, if that's their budget, just tell them one deliverable that I can offer them. So the brand came back and said, oh, well, can you just give us an Instagram post for $15 then? We don't need a blog post. So I totally undercharged myself, and I missed out on the 15 more bucks. So right. I learned my lesson after that. Thankfully, I started doing research and learning. But it is like, if you're not prepared, and these brands start coming to you and asking you for these things, or telling you their budgets, and their budgets are not a lot of money, you don't know what to say. You don't know how to communicate. And I know for sure I didn't. So I'm really glad I took the time to learn and educate myself on how to actually charge. Because there's so much work that goes into creating an Instagram post. Some people are like, oh, it's just a picture. What's the big deal? Oh, no. But there's like location scouting going on. You got to do your hair and makeup. You have to have creative direction. You have to shoot the photos. You have to engage with your audience after it goes up. You have to buy equipment to take these pictures. iPhones, even if you just take it on your phone, iPhones are not cheap. Like there's so much that goes into putting up an Instagram post. So that needs to be considered when we're making content for brands. And one of the brand deals where I realized I was getting taken advantage of back when I was getting gifted items, and I realized, okay, I want to start getting paid, is I did a deal for a huge luxury brand, and they wanted me to do, it was like 7 Instagram posts. And I'm pretty sure they own, I didn't really understand the contract when I was going through it. So I'm pretty sure they have my image for perpetuity, which means forever. Ever and ever. Forever. I could be on a billboard one day and not get any money for it. And it was in exchange for a purse. So for a purse, I did 7 Instagram posts. And I'm like, what? God. Like, I was so burnt out and tired, and I had to meet this deadline, and I had to follow their messaging. And after that, I was like, this is too much. I need to actually charge my worth and understand my value as a creator.
So how do you handle like when you get these no pay or low ball offers with brand collaborations? Like how do you respond to that?
So now what I do is if I get a low ball offer, I'll say, hey, depending on what the offer is, if it's, a lot of times brands will say, for this much, we want an Instagram post, a YouTube video, this, a TikTok, all these things. I'll say, hey, for the budget that we're working with, that your brand is working with, I can provide just one Instagram post, and I'll negotiate it that way depending on my rates. Or if they just try to gift me something, I say, hey, feel free to send me this item, but I don't guarantee posting on my accounts unless it's in a sponsored capacity. So if you want to figure out how we can work together, I would love to, but you can go ahead and send me the item, but that doesn't mean you're going to end up on my Instagram page. And also, I get sent a lot of stuff. Like right now behind me, I actually have a whole bunch of stuff I'm separating into like how to do this, how to give these items away in a giveaway or give them to friends and family. Like after a while, the free stuff just becomes clutter. And it's like, okay, I don't want all of this stuff anymore. So it's easy to say no to those offers because it's like, I live in a 600 square foot apartment in LA. I don't have room.
So many of these offers that will come in. And I know that you and I, we've had conversations, at different points throughout the past couple of years and stuff. And it is something where you do get a lot of those emails that will come in from the companies, but then sometimes they have it spun around in a way that makes it seem like they're doing you a favor, where it's like, here's a discount code, buy our stuff for like 20% off. And here are the deliverables. You need to post it in your Instagram stories. You need to post it on your page. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to give you another discount code for your followers. And ta-da! So I'm like, no, you want me to participate in your sale, and you also want me to do a commercial for you. So it's so interesting to see the different emails that will come in. It's so awesome that, people like yourself will have these conversations to have people realize that it's like, you don't have to be flattered by the fact only that they're reaching out to you. It's wonderful. It means that your work is good and it's being seen, but don't be so flattered to the point where you sell yourself short and allow yourself to be taken advantage of. But in this area too, like I had mentioned before, what's happening is that offers are being placed out to the different influencers, but what's becoming more known and to the forefront is that these are not equal offers that are happening, for the influencers across the board. There's now evidence that there's like pay disparities for the influencers. And I'm curious because you've been doing it for a little while, and I know that you're also collaborating with other influencers and stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on the pay disparities that are happening for the influencers, where Black influencers are getting offered a lot less or no money in comparison to their white counterparts or their white friends that are influencers, which are receiving the same offers, but for pay? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I actually recently read a report. It's called Lifting the Lid, the Influencer Pricing Report by 7-6 Agency. And in the report, they mentioned that a white influencer and a Black influencer got offered totally different amounts for the exact same deliverables. The Black influencer got offered 15 times less in payment than the white influencer. Wow. And it's really upsetting that this is something we're still dealing with, no matter what the industry. It seems like Black women there's a huge pay gap, and we're valued less apparently because they are not willing to pay us. And this happens time and time again. I talk to so many influencers who, luckily, because they actually do talk to their white counterparts, they're aware when they get a lowball deal. And I think that's why transparency and communication about these topics is so important. But I also think if white influencers know this is going on, the white influencers need to be allies and speak up. And if they find out a brand that's paying them, $3,000 and they're only offering a Black influencer $2,000 or $200, the white influencer can use their power and their voice to say, hey, I'm not going to work with you until you offer Black people, an equal amount or something like that. I feel like there needs to be people holding others accountable, and brands listen to white influencers. They are willing to pay white influencers. They want white influencers. And I feel like with the pay gap, Black influencers deserve to get paid so much more than what we're asking for, simply because sometimes we are the token Black person in the campaign. The brand might not be diverse, but they're hiring one Black influencer, maybe two, to make it seem like they are diverse. And it's like, if you're using me to get diversity clout, I need to get paid for that. Another thing with the brands is a lot of the times they'll just offer, to go back what you were saying earlier, I wanted to comment. Sometimes brands will just say, we have zero budget, and white influencers seem to know that this is just a tactic, right? So white influencers will say, well, no, what is your budget? I don't do work for free. Whereas a lot of the minority influencers I talk to, they don't even think to ask for budget. So I think the price gap and the price disparities are sometimes very intentional with the brands, and they know, okay, we can play Black influencers less for whatever reason. But I think it's also maybe the Black influencers don't even know to ask. And I think these conversations are so important.
Absolutely. And it, can feel uncomfortable for some people. But again, that's what my platform is about. It's wanting to have these conversations where people become enlightened and empowered with information or strategies to help themselves. Because, how would you know different? I'm probably sure there's a number of people that didn't even realize that this was happening, or influencers who probably didn't even realize, wait a minute, I need to pause and analyze this, that this is probably not what's being sent to my friend over here. But again, it comes back down to the taboo topics and not really having those comfortable conversations about money and contracts and stuff like that. Do you personally have a group of influencers that you feel comfortable talking about rates with, and the negotiating process as you're navigating through your brand and your business?
Yes, I think having a group that you can ask these questions to is so important. So I specifically always text Janu. You did an episode with her
Yes.
Last season, I believe. And so we literally will send each other screenshots of hey, this is what this brand offered me. How do you think I should respond? Did you work with them? What did they offer you? I also have the Orange Collab. They're one of the groups I co-founded. We actually have a podcast called Let's Talk Orange, where we talk all things business and social media related over there. But we also, half of the group are influencers and the other half are just business owners. So we have a lot of conversations about, hey, what should we charge for different things? Even for pricing yourself as a business owner, we have those discussions. It's totally different from the influencer space, but it's important to be able to talk to people. And sometimes if you are on a brand campaign with other influencers, you'll get everyone's email, everyone's contact information. Sometimes we'll all be on phone calls. So I will reach out to the other influencers on the campaign with me and say, hey, how much are you charging for this? This is how much I charge. And I always offer what I got paid first. So I want to be transparent, and I just want to make sure, we're on the same page. And when I did that, I found that there was another influencer. She had, I had 10,000 followers at the time. She had almost 30,000. We got paid the exact same amount for the exact same deliverables. And it's because she didn't know that she could ask to charge for different things. And so by me reaching out to her and saying, how much did you charge? She actually learned from me, oh, wait, how did we get paid the same amount? But I told her the brand wanted rush fees, meaning they wanted a rush, I should say. So they wanted content in I think it was less than 2 weeks. So I charged extra for that. They wanted revisions. So I charged extra for that. And she's like, I didn't even think to charge for those things. So that's why I was able to get the same amount. So I think people because it's such a new industry, people assume that the people with the larger following are making more money. And that's not always the case. Sometimes micro influencers are making way more than these large influencers because they are nickel and diming and, making sure they get paid for everything, which they should.
Right. And just for everyone that's listening, can you tell them what's a micro influencer?
Yeah, so for my understanding, 1K to 10K is a nano influencer,
Mhm.
and 10K to 50K is a micro influencer.
Okay.
So nano influencers and micro influencers are who brands really want to work with now because they have very niche audiences typically. They get really good
Mhm.
engagement typically, and it's easier for the brand to reach the demographic they're looking for when they work with micro or nano influencers. So that's why nano influencers, you might have 1,000 followers, but if you have 1,000 followers who love thrifting and a thrift
Mhm.
brand wants to reach that audience, I mean, it's a perfect fit. So yeah, they might pay a ton of money to reach that demographic.
That helps tremendously because we hear the terms popping around, but then you're not really sure, like, where do I fit into this? What category am I in? But there is, like you were talking about with like the not knowing, but there's this woman, Adesua, and she manages influencers at the actual talent agency where she works. And then she witnessed for a few years that there was like a huge difference between what the Black influencers were being paid and the offers that were coming into them and the opportunities that were also being offered to them. So she was handling that where you had brands that were reaching out to the agency for them to partner them together. And the overall comparison was like frightening and disheartening for her to see, what was coming in for the Black influencers versus what was coming in for their white counterparts. And it had nothing to do with the quality of work or had nothing to do with how many followers they had or their engagement or anything like that. And so she wanted to help guide people after seeing this for that time and decided to like create this safe space and supportive space for influencers to come and like share their experiences, but to do it anonymously. And so this would allow them to like gain insight and guidance on how to navigate the industry and how to charge their worth because everybody's like sharing. And I think she has like an outline of like the different things to like fill in the information, like how many followers do you have? What was the offer? How much were you offered? That kind of breakdown so that people will be able to also see and then have that information to help them based on what they were doing. So she created this platform called the Influencer Pay Gap. And I think that's remarkable because, again, it is something that's so new and not really like established with pay guidelines. So when you have, people that are on the inside and seeing these kind of things that are then saying, hey, this isn't cool. This, we got to do something about this. But then you're actually seeing, the inconsistencies where I want to definitely emphasize myself, me Shazan, on the Skinny with Shazan. This doesn't have anything to do with the quality of work that's coming from the Black influencers. It has nothing to do with the amount of time or effort that's being put into it. I'll tell you about this story. There was a model, which you were saying similar because of how you were communicating and you were able to like help this other influencer that was on the same job as you. Well, with her, her last name was McDermott, and she also spoke out because what ended up happening is she was on a job, modeling influencer job, and it became a little bit overwhelming because the hairstylist didn't know how to work with her hair. The makeup artist didn't have the correct colors. And, so it's like whenever you're doing a job, just have experience as well. And you encounter those things where they're just kind of like throwing you whatever they have, but there clearly isn't any preparation for your presence there. It's disheartening. And so as time was going on, she asked one of the other models that was there, like, hey, how much are you making for the day? And so she responded and told her, oh, I'm making 1,000 pounds. And she was immediately shocked because she was only getting 100 pounds for the same exact job, for the same exact amount of time,
Oh,
doing the
wow.
same exact thing. So it was like 10 times less. And in her situation, she was like, she didn't even realize that she could be making more and that she could have even asked for more. So it was like, these are the different things that are really happening behind the scenes. But again, I love highlighting the people who are making change like you. So earlier on, I said that, you were my brilliant friend. I mean that because you're also a change maker and you saw this need and you've been experiencing it within the industry, but you went about literally creating something to fix that need, which helps not only you, but the entire industry of influencers, which I think is so amazing. So you created the influencer calculator, which I mean, just even saying that there's like numbers and science labs and all of these different things is just like flying around in my head. Like, what inspired you to actually create the calculator? And what was that experience like? I don't even know where to start thinking with creating a calculator. So please enlighten us on that.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. So when I reached 10,000 followers on Instagram, I was getting a ton of brands reaching out, asking me, what are your rates? And I kind of figure out my rate a little bit. Like I said, I was doing research, asking around, trying to figure out what to charge. I was listening to a ton of podcasts, a ton of YouTubers. I was reading Business Insider because they are very transparent. They have a lot of articles about what influencers of different niches and sizes are charging. So I was like, doing my little mystery search. Okay, what do I charge here? Because it is a new industry. Everyone tells you there's no industry standard, which is not helpful. So I kind of figured out my base rate, but then brands were like, okay, well, what do you charge for 6 months usage of your image? What do you charge for whitelisting? What do you charge for this and that? And I'm like, what the heck? I have no idea. And there wasn't a lot of information out there. And I just wanted something super easy that I could plug and chug and get an answer. I was like, people are telling me there's no standard for the industry, but I'm not taking that as fact because I work in the insurance industry full time. And in my job, I do marketing and stuff. But the people who work at my job who do insurance, they have a program where if someone says, hey, we need insurance for flood, they literally plug and chug. This is my square foot for my house. This is, the area I live in. They plug and chug and then it spits out a number. I'm like, why can't influencers get something like that? And there are things online, like there are little rate calculators that it'll tell you to charge. Like back when I charged $15 for that post, I'm pretty sure I used a rate calculator. So they don't really take into account everything that goes into creating content. So I said, you know what? I need to come up with a formula of some sort to help me figure out what to charge anytime I get a different brand deal. So I just wanted something easy, simple, and there's something nice about having a calculator tell you this is what to charge, because then you cannot doubt your rate. I feel like when I came up with a number on my own, I was like, is this too high? Is this too low? Like, is this fair? And I was really conflicted. And sometimes I'd be scared to give the number. But now that I have a calculator, and if I tell a brand, hey, this is based on a formula I created, I did a ton of research. I reached out to so many influencers. I'm pretty sure there was like 40 influencers whose rates I got to kind of figure out, okay, out of all of these people's rates, what is the average? And I asked influencers who were, at 1,000 following, 1,000,000 following, 50,000, 10,000 from all different niches. And I was like, hey, what do you charge for this? What do you charge for this? And then, I did the math and came up with a number. But what I found is when I created this little calculator, I tested it on people like who I had no idea who they were, or I would go to Business Insider and based on the people's followings and what the brand asked them, or I would use the influencer pay gap and plug in the numbers that the people said they were charging. And when I kind of compared the numbers to people who knew what to charge, the numbers came out to be fair and accurate. And I was like, whoa, wait, this calculator works. Like, I was so excited. So I was able to tell what influencers who were established would charge for a deal. And I was pretty I was in a range. The calculator gives a range, but I was definitely in the range. I was maybe $500 off, but I was really close. So it was really amazing to have a resource that works. So I created this for myself so that I could just put, okay, what does the brand want? Do they want an Instagram post? I select that. Do they want a video? I select that. And then it tells me a number. And then I shared it with the girls over at the Orange Collab, just to be like, hey, this resource has been helpful for me. It might be helpful for you. And the girls were like, Tyler, what? How did you make this? Like, you need to release this to the public. Like, this is not fair that only you get this resource and now us. Like, they're like, people need this resource. It's actually super helpful. And so initially when I created it, it was an Excel spreadsheet. So it was all like formula based and plug and chug. But then I was like, okay, some people aren't comfortable with Excel, and Excel costs money, and I want this to be more accessible. So I now have it where it's literally like a website that you can go to, and it's just drag and drop, and you have to enter a couple numbers and it spits out a number at the end for you. So I know that you've used the calculator. I'd like to know your experience with it, but it's been a game changer and it's helped so many people. One of my friends, before using the calculator, she was going to charge a brand $5,000 for a deal. And after using the calculator, she charged the brand $15,000 and they accept it. So she made an extra $10,000 after using this calculator, and she had no idea she could charge that much. And so this calculator has been really helpful. A lot of my friends who are even nano influencers, they said they were able to triple their rate. And the nice thing about the calculator, it tells you, like if the brand is asking for exclusivity, meaning you can't work with another brand in a certain period of time, if there's it lets you fill in all these things. So that way, when you tell the brand, hey, this is my rate, it's because it includes, exclusivity and stuff. And you can kind of communicate better with the brands for why your rate is what it is. Because sometimes brands will say, oh, your rate's too high. And it's like, no, how are you going to tell me my rate's too high? This is my rate. And it's because it's broken down because of these factors. And usually the brand, if you explain to them, they'll say, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, give me a number. Like, how long did this take you? Because you've been working on it and you're around it and you're using it. So it's like, okay, this is it. Everyone else outside here is like mouth open, dry mouth, dry throat, in awe of like, what? You created a calculator? That's so fantastic. Like, incredibly fantastic. And I am so proud of you for doing this. Like, how much time did you put into this? And how has utilizing this changed your brand collaborations and the negotiations? Do you have like a visual that you can give us of the before and now the after?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I'll answer the time frame first, and I'll tell you how it works for my brand collab. So I started doing research. I would say January of 2020 is when I really started researching, okay, what the heck am I supposed to charge, and figuring that out. But then in June of 2020, that's when I said, okay, I need to actually come up with some kind of formula calculator of some sort. I was an engineering major for a while. I switched to psychology after 3 years, but I am good at math. Like, I took all the calc classes and stuff, so I'm good at math. So I know how to do like the formulas and stuff for things. But so June of 2020, I started playing in Excel, and I was hoping to launch the calculator in September of 2020, but that's when I realized Excel might not be the best format. So then from September to, I think, February, I was working with a web developer to kind of create something that is tangible and easy for people to use with these drop down menus and whatnot. So I launched in March. So how long is that? A little over a year total. I feel like it took to create this thing. And it doesn't even feel that long, but it's been such a valuable resource. And for me, before I got the brand deals in, before I created the calculator, when I would receive a brand deal, what I did was I would try to figure out how long it would take me hourly to create the content, and then charge like an hourly rate. But I wasn't really charging for things like usage and rush fees and exclusivity. I kind of just gave everyone the rate of, I think I was charging like, I don't know, $200 to $300 for a post, no matter what they asked for. It didn't matter if it was on YouTube. It didn't matter if it was on Instagram. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. It was just like, okay, you want to work with me. You're not going to tell me your budget, so I'll tell you mine, which isn't, I didn't really have a rhyme or reason to why I had that number. So now after using the calculator, I've been able to charge 4 figures for pretty much all of my brand deals that I accept. And I've been able to make consistent income now. Like my goal was to make at least $10,000 each quarter. And I've been exceeding that goal since having this. And it's because I charge for things like usage rights. Like if a brand wants to use your image for a certain amount of time, you can charge at least $1,000 for that, So it's like, I've learned how to charge for different things. And it also doesn't take me all day. I don't have to stress about giving a number. I used to before be like, is this number good? And I used to doubt, and I maybe asked all my friends, do you think this is high enough? And now I'm like, I'm confident in the number I give. And a lot of the times, this is something that never happened before I used the calculator. The brand will tell me my number is out of their budget. They're like, wait, our budget's a little bit lower. And that's good, because if you're not asking for too much money, you're leaving money on the table. Because if a brand immediately says yes to the number you give them, that probably means they are working with a larger budget. So it's better to give a number that's too high and negotiate down to meet their budget rather than to undercharge yourself and just get an immediate yes. Because if they didn't even push back, it's like, wait, how much money did you want to give me? So that's totally been the experience in choosing the calculator. The brands will be like, okay, well, our budget's this, like, what can we take out to meet so that we can work together and meet our budget? And that's great, because that's less work for me at the end of the day.
That in itself is just incredible. You know your value and you're going to ask for it. And they're not turning away from you because you're working consistently and they're working along with you. For you to be able to see that transition happen in these past years is remarkable. And so, of course, most people, and a number of people listening, I'm sure, feel intimidated at the idea of asking a company that may reach out to them or a company that they would like to reach out to for money. It's just like this uncomfortable space. Especially when you feel like I'm asking for something that I believe I am worth. But then you have that fear, like they're probably going to tell me no, or I'm going to lose this opportunity. So do you have any recommendations or tips for how to maneuver this important business area of being an influencer?
Yeah, I definitely felt that when I first started. I was like, I don't want to scare them off with a scary number. Because they might just go with a different influencer and I don't want to lose this business. But I feel like that's like a scarcity mindset. Like the brand reached out to you, they found you valuable. So if you ask for what you want, they should be willing to work with you. But I think thinking of being an influencer and working with brands and creating content as a service changes things completely. Like before, I'm like, well, it's just an Instagram post. So even I'm thinking it's not, I'm not worth it. But if you break down how much time it takes you to do these things, how much trust you've built with your audience, and if you look at your Instagram page as ad space, I feel like that changes everything. Because I was watching something recently and it was like, I think it was I was listening to a podcast recently and they said to get a feature in like a 1-page feature in magazines and stuff, it's like, $50,000 for a 1-page feature. Right. And so if you have a blog, your blog is like a magazine. If you're on Instagram, your Instagram is even like a magazine and they're buying ad space. So it's okay to charge for this space. And every time you do a sponsored post, that is exposing your audience to something that it still should be authentic to you, but it's an ad at the end of the day. And sometimes your audience doesn't want to see a ton of ads. So now you have to figure out how to navigate, like how I'm exposing you to my audience who know, likes, and trusts me. And you need to pay for access to them. This is not something I'm just going to give you for free. So I think that's totally changed my mindset on, why is it okay to charge brands? And also, brands are working with tremendous budgets, right? Like we might think, as a small business owner, okay, if I'm charging $300 for an Instagram post, that's a lot of money. To a brand, they have marketing budgets set aside for these kind of things. And I think if you change the mindset of, if a big brand reaches out to you, that big brand probably has in one point of time shot a commercial, shot a campaign with models. And when brands work with models, I've worked as a model since like 2012. And so I've been on set. And when you go to set, the model literally just shows up, poses, does whatever the brand needs her to do, but she's not the creative director. She's not the photographer. She's not doing her hair and makeup usually. The brands, when they have a whole shoot, they feed the entire staff typically. So everyone they hired, they have to feed. They have to rent out a location. So all of these things, like there's so much money going into a brand campaign. And so influencers are totally helping cut the cost of this, and they're helping brands come out with user-generated content more consistently. And so the brand reaching out to you, even if you charge a couple $1,000s, you are saving the brand so much money. And brands, I forgot, there's a report that came out. Oh, I don't even know if I could think of it. If I think of it, I'll send it to you to put in the show notes, Jason. But they were saying, like, they were bragging about how much money they've saved since switching to influencer marketing rather than traditional like commercials or traditional forms of marketing. So this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and their brands are putting money into it, and there is enough money to go around for everyone. So don't be afraid to ask for it. And if the brand's not willing to pay, then that's okay. Brands will come. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, I would like to work with less brands for more money. So I'm okay with saying no now, because I don't want to be overworked and stretching myself too thin for too little of money.
The power of no.
Exactly.
I've definitely been on sets where we're all working there, and everyone who is there, especially if you're working for half a day or for the full day, everyone's billing 4 figures for the day. So if you as an influencer, you're taking care of every single aspect of this and providing a high quality image at the end of it and putting it in your space directly in front of people, you have now removed thousands and thousands of dollars for that 1 or 2 or 3 images that you're about to provide for this brand. What are your thoughts for like influencers that are the nano group or micro group? What are your thoughts on them working with brands that reach out to collaborate, but they're just offering like products or discounts or discount codes for collaborations instead of financial compensations? Do you think they should do that?
I think it's okay to accept like gifted collabs, especially in the beginning, because you do want to build your portfolio and show brands, this is branded content I've made in the past, and you have to start somewhere. The thing I will say, though, is make sure it's a brand that you absolutely love and that is a natural fit. And it's not going to be forced content, and just be selective. Like, for example, I am all things thrifting, right? And so Savers was like, I will give you $100 gift cards to create some content. I was like, yeah, because where else am I going to spend my money? My money's going to Savers. So it made sense at the time. So if it's something where you're already spending money with and you already genuinely like talking about, I think it's okay. And some of these products are expensive, like especially I'm thinking like beauty space influencers. You might not have the money to buy all these beauty products. So it's okay to get gifted items to be able to create the content you want. But I think at some point, once you do create a portfolio that's strong and show like, these are the brands I've worked with in the past and kind of just build your resume, then it's okay to transition over to, okay, maybe I don't do gifted things anymore. But I still even do gifted things. I tell people, I don't guarantee promotion. You can, send me this gift if you'd like, but I usually just show them on IG stories in an unboxing video on, I call it Mail Mondays. And so there's still ways where you can show like the gifted products. But I think when people say don't ever accept gifted products, that can be a little bit drastic. So I would say do what works for you at the end of the day, but gifted products, it's not such a bad thing. And sometimes brands, like let's say you're a nano influencer and a brand says, I'm going to send you a t-shirt to create content. Does that equal, like if you charge $200 for an Instagram post and the brand's giving you a $25 t-shirt, that's not an equal trade. But you can go back and ask the brands, can you send me $200 worth of product? And so it matches the rate you would normally charge. So that's a really great way to kind of navigate it. Make sure the amount you're getting gifted matches what you feel like your content is worth.
There's an important term that I didn't want us to like skate over, which is important for influencers. And it's a term that is like used very frequently and used to determine like an influencer's impact or value to the brand, and it's engagement. Can you explain what that is and how in the world do you find out what your platform's engagement is? Is there a formula for that?
There is a formula. I actually need to add it to my calculator because I've gotten a few questions on this. But basically, there's a website called Flanks. I don't even know how to say it. It's PHLAN, like Nancy, X, like xylophone. and that will determine your engagement rate. But the engagement rate is basically just how much do people actually engage and interact with your content. So if you want to do it by hand, what you can do is add up all of your comments and likes and shares and saves from your most recent 9 Instagram posts. You add it all up, and then you divide it by the number of followers you have, and then you divide that by 9, and then you times it by 100. I believe that's the formula. But on Flanks, it kind of shows you like what is good engagement. So if you're a nano influencer, depending on your size, I have it pulled up. If you have 1,000 to 5,000, 5.6% is a good engagement rate. If it's 5K to 20K, 2.4% is a good engagement. 20K to 100K, 2.1. So the engagement as you get larger goes down, because if you have a million followers, I mean, a million people aren't going to like your Instagram post. Like that's just, and that's why brands want to work with nano influencers, because a 5% engagement rate versus someone with a million who might get 2% engagement, I'd go, you're reaching people who are actively engaged and care about your niche, which is why nano and micro influencers are so valuable. But yeah, engagement rate, if you get a lot of comments, and if you have 1,000 followers, a lot of comments can be like 50 comments. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of comments. I don't know if that answers the question or if that makes sense, but
it does.
Okay,
it does. It totally does, because that's something that you will hear just in passing, like, do you have high engagement or whatever? But I know that sometimes in media kits and different pitches that you might be putting together, or questions that you might receive from the brands, they ask you about like your engagement. And, it can just sound like, oh, yeah, I talk to my community. Yeah, they ask me questions. We communicate back and forth. But I know that there is like the specific number. So in letting people know there is a specific number, and in addition to arriving at that number, there is a very specific formula.
Yes, there is. But I will say nano influencers and micro influencers sometimes get discouraged when a brand reaches out and asks, what is your engagement rate? The brand can usually, they have tools on their end where they can see. I think 4 also tells you your engagement rate. It's FOHR. It might be .co or .com. That you just plug in your username and it'll tell you. But it's okay if you have a low engagement rate. And brands that tell you, some brands will reach out and say, you have to make this many sales and you have to have the affiliate link and all the stuff like Shazan was saying earlier. Influencers, our job is not sales. Our job is to create content. So even if you have a low engagement rate, you can still charge a lot of money because you are charging for the actual image. And just to go back, like my job, we were updating our marketing materials and we needed to get some stock photos. Stock photos, to own them for however many years or even forever, they're like $500 for one photo. Like they're not cheap. Yeah. And so not only is the brand getting a photo from you, they are also getting access to your audience. Even if it's a small audience, you are, again, still saving them money, because instead of them buying one stock photo, they're probably getting multiple photos from you, and you're sharing it to, the people who care about the content you create. So I think looking at it that way is super helpful.
Based on your experience to this point, and for people that are listening, like at what point do you believe that someone can or should start charging brands for creating content, like a follower number? Can you start doing that if you're less than 1,000, or should you wait? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that if your intentions are to make money in the influencer space, it doesn't really matter what your following count is. You can make money. I typically find that it's easier to start making money once you reach 1,000 followers. But I think if your goal needs to be I don't think it's smart for people to just make money because they have try to make money because they have 10 followers on Instagram, right? I feel like it needs to be a long-term goal, and you have to have a clear brand. And I think that's why a lot of nano influencers say hey, brands, I reach out to the brands and they don't necessarily want to work with me. It's not always because the following is too small. It could be because your brand messaging isn't clear, your brand aesthetic isn't clear. The brand when you reach out to a brand to say, hey, I want to work with you, even if you're at 1,000 followers, if the brand can go to your page and have a clear understanding of how you would portray their product, in your own voice and your own aesthetic, that's really why brands are working with influencers. It's showing their products in a new and unique way that your audience cares about and is engaged with. So I think it's okay, even if you have a low following and a low engagement rate, as long as your content is high quality and it is clear in its messaging. And it's pretty to look at, it's aesthetic. Yeah. Because I've seen some pages where it's 1,000 followers, but like maybe it's all over the place. It's not clear. Like, are you into thrifting? Are you into Amazon? Are you into like, I don't know, alcohol? Like, it's like a lot going on and there's not a clear story or clear message. So once you're able to establish that, that's when I think you're ready to work with brands, because when working with brands, it's a whole lot that goes behind it. This might be another episode, Shazon, but the brand will send you a creative brief and they'll send you talking points and they'll send you like kind of an image guideline of what they want. And if you don't know what your brand is, it might be confusing. Like, how can you implement the brand's creative brief into what you're already creating? It can confuse your content. And sometimes I've seen it where people make this branded content and it's not a natural fit. It like sticks out like a sore thumb. So branding is everything. So once you get that down, it's easier to implement these creative briefs and kind of create content that is seamless and doesn't seem like random or seem like you just did it for the money.
As we're like coming to closing here, do you have like 2 aesthetic tips or branding tips for our listeners that you that would like to become paid influencers, or they're actually current influencers that are trying to figure out, how to make a profit from the content that they're creating on social media? So just like the aesthetic side or branding side, what tip do you have that they should look at and try to implement?
Yeah. So my first tip is to figure out your why. Like, why are you making content? And I guess you could also say, who are you making content for? So at the end of the day, your content should always go back to your why. So for me, my why is I want to encourage people to give thrifting, sustainability, and natural selves a chance, to encourage them to live a more sustainable lifestyle. And I also want them to be able to build generational wealth, blah, blah, blah. Like, I have a whole reason why I create the content that I do. And whenever I post something, I'm like, okay, does this go back to that why? Is this going to help, my target avatar achieve those things or feel confident about, taking the leap towards sustainable living or accepting their natural hair or going into the thrift store for the first time? Like, I always keep that in the back of my mind. So I think that's a big indicator. And then I would say that's more for like the content creation side and messaging. But then for aesthetics, what I did and I found was so helpful is I went to Pinterest and I saved like a big old mood board of what I wanted Thrifts and Tangles to be. And after I saved all of my favorite images, I went in and I analyzed, okay, what do these images have in common? Like, what did I save the most of? What colors, textures, what tones did I like, and all that thing. And then that was how I was able to come up with my overall brand aesthetic. And people spend more money with brands that have a story, have an aesthetic. I mean, I always think Disney, people are like always upset when they cannot give Disney all of their money. So it's because they have good messaging and good branding. I remember, this is a tangent, but when The Mandalorian came out on Disney Plus, people were mad. It came out around the holiday season and Baby Yoda was not able to be ordered. They dropped the ball and Baby Yoda was back ordered for like months and people were upset. They were like, we want Baby Yoda for Christmas. And it was a whole thing. But that's how you know it's a good brand. Like, people are begging you to give their money to you.
So that should be like the ultimate goal: brand consistency, aesthetic consistency, and have your message speak for itself in that consistency when someone comes to your page. It's important for us to continue having these topics. And yeah, like you mentioned, we probably need to have like a part 2 interview with you so that we can like talk into brand presentation and like how to have our brand stand out and be in that place where we can ask and feel this level of confidence in knowing that, hey, the power of no, if you don't go along with what I'm saying in terms of what my rates are, I feel comfortable in stepping away because I'm confident in the time and effort I'm putting in to create this consistency and message with my brand. But Tyler, it was so incredible again having you here with me today. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. Our conversations can always go on for like hours and hours. And I appreciate all of your knowledge and wisdom that you've shared with us today. Before we go, please let everyone know where they can find you, how they can get your amazing calculator, and stay in touch with you.
Yes. Again, thanks for this conversation. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be a third-time podcast guest if we can make that happen. But yeah, you can find me over at Thrifts and Tangles. I'm on Instagram and I'm on YouTube. And then I have a blog, thriftsandtangles.com. And Thrifts and Tangles. Sorry, I feel like it sounds like I'm saying Thrifts in Tangles because I'm saying it too fast. And if you want to get your hands on the influencer rate calculator, go to theinfluencerratecalculator.com, or it's also available on my website, Thrifts and Tangles, under the shop tab. So yeah, thank you all. I hope you learned some helpful tips from me today.
It was awesome, as always. And you're always so giving with your experiences and knowledge, which I'm always so appreciative of too. So yes, again, my sincerest thanks for trusting me to be here a second time. Well, guys, that is a wrap. If you have enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, download, review, share, all of those things that come along with podcasts. And just, know that the Skinny appreciates each and every one of you. And so, extend it, share it, pass it on to others. Let us know your thoughts, takeaways, and give us your feedback on moments that stood out to you. It's so important to us as we continue to evolve and grow this amazing community. I just can't stop gushing over all of you. I appreciate you all so much. If there are topics or guests that you'd like to hear on the show, please don't hesitate to drop us a line and communicate and get into the DMs or however, the website. You can always find us at the main portal, shayzon.com, and that's SHAY, Z as in zebra, ON as in Nancy.com. And for all the goodies and the latest updates on the show, you can head over to Instagram as well and follow at Shayzon. It's pretty simple. I try to keep it really simple. SHAYZON. And over there, you will get a peek inside of my life, the voice behind the mic, and all the fashion and thrifting and sewing and all of this stuff that I love so much. So you've been listening to the Skinny with Shayzon. That's me. Thank you so much for sharing your time and light with me in this space where you are heard, seen, valued, and loved. Never forget that you're beautiful and deserve to live a happy and empowered life. Meet you back here for next week's episode. Bye, honey bunnies.